Coming up on this week's episode of Flashtalk here on FanDuel Sports Network, we catch up with Kent State football as they start midweek action. And we talk to Kent State men's basketball head coach Rob Senderoff ahead of the Golden Flashes home opener. Plus, assistant field hockey coach Lizzie Hamlett joins the show to talk about what Kent State field hockey needs to do to make a run in the MAC tournament. And lastly, wrestling head coach Jim Andrassy joins the show to talk about the start of Kent State's wrestling season. All that and more coming up in a flash. Welcome into our Flash Talk studios. Dane Richardson alongside Kent State football linebackers and special teams coordinator CJ Robbins. Coach, appreciate you joining me and heading into midweek action the rest of the year. You're the linebackers and special teams guy. Tell me the growth you've seen out of that linebacker position.
Yeah, I think from the position overall, just in general from week to week, the guys' investment has gone up, which has been awesome to see. We've gone through some just struggles in the room in general where, I haven't seen these guys whether falter at all in how they prepare for the game, and it's honestly going up. Playing younger guys or guys new to positions and everything, it's been cool to be a part of that group and be able to work with those guys, just new names and new young guys that we're talking about, the Jaden Studios, the Nyland Browns. You had a Mason Woods who's new to Kent State, transferring in and everything, who has come in and been able to make an imprint on the linebacker room.
Jaden Studio and Nyland Brown. We've seen those guys get more playing time as the season has progressed, and they've started to make some splash plays on the defensive side of the ball. So how excited are you for their development and growth as they continue to play?
Very excited. I mean, they're two young guys that have just very, very bright futures. This time is so big for them right now because of just them being young and learning and the learning curve. But those guys have taken it head on. They are acting mature beyond their years, and it's not perfect all the time. And they're invested in the learning progress. And we talk about our culture and everything of like growing and responding. For a true freshman to be out there on the field, especially as a linebacker, growing and responding is like the two things that they have to do all the time. And kind of how I tie it in with the room of just looking at the older guys to still mentor those guys. Mm-hmm. As they gain more reps, I talk about the room and just the family that we have to be in, the togetherness that they have to be able to show each other for the older guys to be able to mentor those younger guys. And I talk to the room, whether you have individual success or not, that is room success. That all of us kind of took part in a younger guy getting more reps and being able to build him to understand this playbook, as well as them just doing it on their own too.
I'll mention special teams a little bit. I know you're the linebackers guy, but we'll switch to a few offensive guys. Deshaun Martin's a young receiver out of Springfield, but he's also shown flashes, no pun intended, on the kickoff return. He's had multiple returns of over 30, 35 yards this year on kickoffs. How special is his return ability, and what have you liked from him?
In the offseason workouts and XYZ and the summer running, he has the it factor. Yeah. He's got just unreal athletic ability and everything. And early on in fall camp, we're looking at him, we're like, I think he's going to be a really good returner. We felt really good about him and everything. So, getting him the opportunity and what he's been able to do, I think the biggest thing, and people don't understand, like catching a kickoff return or a punt for a punt return, that's scary. There's 11 guys running down for you. And the thing that he did is like he took it head on, didn't bat an eyelash, had great energy to him. Outside of his athletic ability, a lot of that return stuff is just the mentality that you have to be able to set things up, have the patience to read blocks and go hit it north and south. And you got to have some like dude to you. You got to have some like, I can go put this thing in the crib.
Coach Burns has described you as his right-hand man, someone who brings a ton of positivity to this program, keeps you guys on the up and up. So what can you say about those type of words and your relationship with Coach Burns?
It's a privilege to be able to work here with Coach Burns. And the reason I say that, and it just means a ton to me, is because my second year in coaching, I was a graduate assistant at University of Minnesota. So as I sat there and I went there as a defensive GA, I met Coach Burns there. Yeah. And that coaching staff, Coach Fleck and the coaching staff, was phenomenal. And I learned so much and grew so much, but I also grew the relationship with Coach Burns there. And as somebody who, I was young and I was grinding, I was just keeping my head down, for him to see something in me and see a bright spot in me enough for me to leave there. And he gets this job and then brings me along. And then I go into the second year and he sees me as somebody to be his right-hand man, to be the assistant head coach. Just means a ton. And it talks to our like-mindedness. I see things a lot of the same way as him, as far as culture, as far as the right way to do things. And we align 100%. So it's very easy to fall in line, and it's very easy to be positive in an environment like this that I wholeheartedly believe in from my playing days and what's in my DNA.
That's Kent State football linebackers and special teams coordinator CJ Robbins. Coach, we always appreciate the time.
So appreciate you.
Welcome back to Flash Talk. Dane Richardson alongside Kent State men's basketball head coach Rob Senderoff. Coach Sendy, appreciate you joining me as always. And to talk about your team, tell me how you've had a couple of close scrimmages and how practice has gone so far and what you're seeing as the identity of this team as you head into non-conference play.
Yeah, I think, we're ready to get going and play games and see how we compete against other teams. The scrimmages were great. But it's time for us to really, get ourselves tested against other opponents and see where we're at, see what we need to work on, what are the areas that we're strong at, and where we need to improve. We have great depth, that's for sure. The difference between 1 and 10 on our roster is razor thin, and on any given day, the guy that's 10 looks like 1 or 2, and the guy who's 1 or 2 can look like 10 if they're not, not having a good day. So that's a good thing. I remember wasn't too long ago with Golden State Warriors, strength in numbers, and that's one of our, that's one of our strengths right now.
I know it's still very early in the season. What else do you think are the strengths of this team?
We've got real physical wings. Last year we played really small on the perimeter. Gio and Jalen were playing almost exclusively together. And this year with guys like Marquise Barnett, Jamal Sumlin, Morgan Safford, those three guys playing sort of as the two guard a lot, gives you a lot more size at that position. Vaughn's obviously a strong physical guy. He always has been. Claron and Rico and Mag anchoring inside gives us three really good front court guys, with both Rico and Mag being able to play a little bit at the 4. We have the opportunity at different times to play small or play big, and to make sure, again, that we're keeping guys fresh, and that hopefully we'll be able to utilize the number of guys that we have that are quality players.
In the season, or even last year, you talked about getting back to that defensive identity that is Kent State men's basketball. From what you have seen so far from your team, do you feel like you're getting back to that defensive identity that you want, Coach?
We're getting there. We were much better in scrimmage 2 than we were in scrimmage 1. Hopefully, as the year starts, we'll continue to improve each day. But, the defense is what's going to allow us, if we're going to have a successful season, to have a successful season. We're going to have to rebound the basketball. We're going to have to turn teams over to create extra possessions. We're going to have to be physical without fouling, and just be incredibly competitive, because that's been the makeup of our teams when we've had really good teams. And I've mentioned it a couple times. I felt like there was a little slippage there last year for whatever reason, whether it was injuries or personnel or me. There was a little slippage there. And we need to get back to that identity in order to have success moving forward.
You have 4 key transfers that are expected to be either in the starting lineup or a part of the rotation. Morgan Safford, who was with the program last year, Marquise Barnett, Sion Medley, and Anthony Morales. Tell us a little bit more about those 4 that haven't seen them in action just yet.
Yeah, really good quality players, really good people, hard workers, Sion is a pure point guard. He is the one pure point guard on our roster. Jamal Sumlin and Jalen certainly can play point guard, but the pure point guard on the team is Sion. Marquise Barnett is a really physical, athletic wing guard. Morgan Safford, really physical with an incredibly high basketball IQ. Morgan Safford, I think his basketball IQ is as high as anybody that we have in the program. And Anthony's a really versatile player. It's interesting because the more he's been here with us in practice, he's got the length of a four-man because he's about 6'7", 6'8", but he's got the skill set of a guard because he's a pass-first player, very unselfish, again, with a really good basketball IQ. So versatility, certainly with all of those guys, multiple position guys outside of Sion, but guys that are here to compete.
We have your home opener coming up this Friday against Miami Hamilton. How excited are you guys?
Yeah, ready to play a home game, ready to put on that uniform and play in front of our fans and sort of get things going for the year. So we're looking forward to it. Hope everybody will be here Friday evening, and we can't wait to get things started here at the Mac Center.
Friday night at 7 p.m. inside the Mac Center. That's Kent State men's basketball head coach Rob Senderoff. Coach, we appreciate the time.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Welcome back to our Flashtalk studios. Dane Richardson alongside Kent State assistant field hockey coach Lizzie Hamlett. Lizzie, we appreciate you joining me on Flashtalk. And the postseason is here for Kent State field hockey. How excited are you for potentially 3 games in 4 days in this quarterfinal matchup coming up against Ball State?
We're really excited. We've worked hard this season to put ourselves in this position, and so I think we're just ready to capitalize on the opportunity.
You guys have played 3 games in 4 days before. You took that California trip. So how important do you think that trip, that West Coast trip was?
Along with the travel, it was definitely tough on their bodies, but they know that they're fully capable of doing it. And we've been really trying to prioritize having shorter practices, keeping their legs, the load off their legs. And I think with the recovery that we have, the strength that the girls playing have, I think we'll be fine.
5 MAC wins once again this year for Kent State field hockey. Where have you seen the biggest growth?
Our biggest growth has been our defensive performance, which isn't a surprise due to Heather's background. Yeah. She is very much head of our defensive unit, and she has just put in the time with these girls individually, but also tactically in the bigger picture. And so I think that that's definitely our strength, and being able to see it grow throughout the season has been awesome.
Like Coach Hefner, this is your first year on the staff, Lizzie. What have you learned most yourself as a coach? How
to be organized and how to prioritize things that are urgent and important, and just being able to balance, like setting up hotel rooms and food and all the travel stuff, along with also like pouring into the girls and building relationships with them has been very important.
What was that process like when Heather came to you and said, hey, I want you to be a part of my staff here at Kent State?
It was exciting. Obviously, everybody wants to feel wanted by somebody. Yeah. So for her to ask me to join it just validated me a lot as who I am and like my ability to coach. And so joining her, I thought about it for a little bit, but honestly, like I couldn't see myself doing my job without her. So it's been a lot of fun.
And you played in the 2021 national championship game. You went on that run. Coach Hefner was obviously an assistant coach during that run. How often do you think back to those days?
Probably too often, honestly. I was just talking to them a couple days ago about how it was something that I dreamed of, but I never actually thought would happen. Every college athlete really dreams about being in the national championship. And so to see what we were capable of doing, when I got there, we were ranked number 16. And by the time I left, I was in the national championship. Yeah. So I was really impressed by the growth I had, but as well as like the team and just the people around me. Those are memories that I'll hold forever.
Do you think you can take that postseason experience playing in those type of big games and maybe help the current players on the team if they're dealing with any pressure heading into this year's postseason?
We made our national championship run. That was the first time that we had won our conference tournament. So everyone on the team at that point didn't have post-conference tournament experience. We leaned in a lot to the pressure, and we really viewed it as a privilege that we had this opportunity. If we can lean into our values of growth, trust, selflessness, gratitude in those moments, it allows us to just really be present and not feel external pressure, but just like really lean into the excitement of being in that position.
What is Kent State field hockey going to need to do to pull off those 3 wins in 4 days and get back to the NCAA tournament?
That's something we've been focusing on. What is something we can do to get 1% better? We're not going to be able to fix everything at one point. And so we've really been focusing on our transition to attack. We really need to get a little bit better at finishing in the circle. And so I think that if we can focus on being able to score, the rest of the things will come together as well.
Kent State assistant field hockey coach Lizzie Hamlett. Lizzie, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, Dane.
Coming up this week in Kent State Athletics, brought to you by KSU Tix. Kent State soccer is in the MAC semifinal as they visit number 1 seed Western Michigan in Kalamazoo. First touch is at 2:30 p.m. Then at night inside the MAC Center, 7 p.m. is tip-off as Kent State women's basketball hosts Walsh on Outer Banks night. Then on Friday, Kent State wrestling has their home opener at noon inside the MAC Center against Gannon University. Kent State volleyball visits first place Central Michigan for a matchup at 6 p.m. in Mount Pleasant. And Kent State men's basketball has their home opener at 7 p.m. inside the MAC Center against Miami Hamilton. On Saturday, November 9th, Kent State wrestling is back in action, this time on the road at Michigan State University in the Michigan State University Open. And women's volleyball continues their doubleheader at Central Michigan with first serve at 4 p.m. on Saturday. And finally, on Wednesday, November 13th, after a few days off, Kent State football has their second midweek MACtion game of the season as they visit Miami, Ohio. Kickoff is at 7 p.m. And lastly, men's basketball has their first Power 5 matchup of the season as they face top 15 ranked Auburn on the road in Auburn with tip-off at 8 p.m. As always, you can buy your tickets at ksutix.com. If you want more information on your favorite Flashes teams, visit kentstatesports.com or visit the Go Flashes app. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to our Flash Talk studios. Dane Richardson alongside Kent State Wrestling head coach Jim Andrassy. Coach, appreciate you joining us. And the season has finally arrived for your team. So tell us how the offseason, what you're most excited about heading into this year.
It's business as usual. We try to have a pretty hard offseason. So we go into most wrestling teams probably try to get their guys to peak once during the year. We try to actually get our guys to peak twice, once early on, and then we'll try to get them to peak at the end of the year. Just the way we've always done things. I think we're a developmental team, so we're always trying to develop our wrestlers. And when you do that, you take a little bit different strategy than some of the programs that maybe have the best guys in the country. With that, we're pretty excited about the upcoming season. Conditioning or preseason is always long. It's very monotonous. And until you get into the season where you can actually watch guys wrestle and then actually work on making adjustments to the wrestling, practice become a little bit more productive, I think. Right now, we're just kind of grinding through things, trying to get our guys in shape, trying to get them tougher, trying to do all the things. So when we're ready to wrestle a team like Maryland this week, we're going to be ready to go.
2 guys that did wrestle last year that are back, Aaron Ferguson, Blake Schaefer. Tell us about those guys and what you're expecting out of them in this upcoming season.
Aaron Ferguson went from 165 down to 157. I think that at some point, he believed he was a 165 last year, but the guys are just so much bigger than him. Not necessarily stronger, just bigger. Mm-hmm. So he cut back down to 157. And Blake Schaefer, he entered the porthole. Kind of like one of those things, he always thought the grass might have been green on the other side, and he came back to Kent, and we're glad to have him. And he's going to be a 197 pounder. And both of them, they're kind of the leaders on the team. They're probably our 2, besides Jordan Decatur, our 2 oldest guys that have been with us their entire career. And they're just the leaders of the team. And we're looking for them to kind of go out and set the pace.
Jordan Decatur, a guy that you're also very excited about that you just talked to me about earlier. Tell us a little bit about him.
He's a 6-year guy, so he's a COVID kid, gets that last year. And last year he tore his ACL the very first day of practice. So we didn't really get to watch him compete for us. He transferred from Ohio State. He's been ranked as low as 6th in the country before. Wow. He went in as a Big Ten. I think he was like the 3rd seed of the Big Ten 3 or 4 years ago. So he's got some very, very good experience. He's wrestled for a Big Ten program. He's a local kid. And I'm just glad to have someone with his, I don't want to call it expertise, but he's got a lot of the things that you need to be very, very successful at this level. Now, can we keep him healthy? That's always been an issue for him in his career. Can we keep him healthy? Can we keep him on the right path? As you get older, he's a 25-year-old senior, which is pretty old at this point for wrestling. So there's some things we got to do differently with him, but we're pretty excited just to get him on the mat, get him to so some of our younger guys can see a guy that knows how to wrestle, knows how to do a lot of the things to be successful.
Do you have a lot of true freshmen and redshirt freshmen on your roster? Are there any of those guys that you're excited about?
We've got a lot of freshmen and redshirt sophomores into our lineup. I think that one of them is Brent Simmerman. He'll be a senior at heavyweight for us. He's just a big kid. And he's kind of figuring it out. So I think somewhere down the line he's gonna be a pretty good college wrestler. Is it this year? Is it next year? But he's a guy just to keep your eye on. Heavyweight, it's one of those weight classes that if you can work really hard, you can have a lot of success. At 125, we got a guy named Tyler Higginson who beat last year. He's a New Jersey kid, and in the semis, he beat the number one ranked kid in the country to make it to the finals of the tournament. That guy was also a world champ, so he's got some predicate behind him as far as how good he can be. Once again, I think he's going to redshirt this year. A guy in front of him is Nico Calero, who is a Jersey kid as well, who bear a 125-pounder. He's a kid that he's gotten better and better each year, and he's a third-year guy, redshirt sophomore. So we're excited about, like I said, we've got a lot of young guys in our lineup. We're glad to have them on our team.
Certainly sounds like you have a lot of options heading into this upcoming season. Yeah, and you have your home opener coming up this Friday against Gannon. How excited are you for that?
Last year we started 4 backups against them and a total of 8 freshmen last year, and we didn't wrestle very well. One of those things where our guys I think they kind of thought, hey, we're wrestling a Division II team. All we got to do is show up. I'm hoping that our guys will be a little bit more understanding the situation, understanding what happened last year when you don't do things the correct way. So hopefully we'll be ready to go. And it's our only competition this year. We're wrestling 2 events back to back. So we wrestle again, and then we go to Michigan State Open. So the object is you try to get your guys ready for the conference tournament, which is a 2-day weigh-in. We're doing that early on just because it was really the only time we could fit into our schedule. So we're going to try to wrestle our 10 best guys against Gannon and then go to Cleveland or the Michigan State Open, where we're taking our entire team the next day in wrestling. So it's going to be a busy weekend for us. We're looking, it's a early start, I think a noon start that day. Once again, we're doing that because we're headed to Michigan State. So it'll be a day event. We're just excited to get our season going and our schedule going as well.
And that's Kent State Wrestling head coach Jim Andrassy. Coach, we always appreciate the time.
Thank you.
That'll do it for this week's episode of Flash Talk. Make sure you go out to the Mack Center and Dick Stadium for the last few Flash Frenzy events. For Ethan Lachinsky, Justin Spots, and our entire GFTV crew, I'm Dane Richardson saying goodnight and go Flashes.